Please start. Okay. Hi, my name is Emily, and welcome to my podcast. Now, this is really awkward for me because honestly, I don't even really know why. My podcast name is Babbling Bridges because if you are new here and you don't know, I am a yapper, okay? Now, topics on my podcast are going to be a plethora. So for this episode, I'm going to kind of go over everything that's going to be on my podcast, and don't mind if I'm a little awkward. We will warm up as we go. Now, I've been on social media for years, and I never in my life growing up thought I would ever be on social media. There's a decade of my lifetime where there's no single photos of me or anything because I grew up with a really bad skin disorder which left me in and out of the hospital, which led me into being in a wheelchair and having my lungs failing and my heart failing and my liver failing and my kidney failing. I went through a lot of mental issues as well and a lot of abuse, and so yeah, this episode I'm going to kind of go over my life story and my testimony and how we got to where we are today, and then the next couple episodes I'm going to break down my testimony and then I'm going to go into different topics. But I've learned a lot from my lifetime, and I learned growing up that we do not just go through battles for our own strength but to give strength to others. And so I feel a little nervous, which is very weird for me because I'm very outgoing and I talk no problem on social media, which I think is what's took me so long to start this podcast because I'm not used to the whole microphone thing, the whole camera thing. I've been on YouTube and then took down all my content, and then I was on TikTok for years and then took down all my content and then got back on because I have grown my relationship with God. Now, if you do not believe in God or anything like that, the Lord is the Lord of my life and everything to me, and I'm not here to force anything. You are welcome to stay whether you believe or whether you don't believe. I love everyone. I have no bad or ill energy towards anyone at all, and I do know for a fact that any one of you can definitely relate to my testimony in some way. So we'll just get started. My name is Emily, and I'm 27 years old. Again, the name of my podcast is Babbling Bridges because my last name is Bridges, and I babble a lot. So I was raised in a very beautiful family, okay? I'm very, very blessed for my family. We have a huge family on both sides. So my dad's parents had 5 kids, and my mom's parents had 6 daughters, so we just have a moment of silence for my grandpa on my mom's side. But huge family, lots of cousins on both sides. I am the baby on one side, and I am the baby of 3 girls. So I have 2 older sisters. Now, my parents embodied such a beautiful relationship growing up and really just put their whole heart, mind, body, and soul into family first, and that is something I will never take for granted, especially in the world that we live in. There's a lot of broken families, and it just breaks my heart. As I grew up, I realized not everyone had that, and that really is such a blessing. Now, that does not mean that I didn't go through a lot of trauma, so I just want to put that right out there so that when I go to explain my testimony, people don't think that it was from my family. I do know a lot of the stuff I am about to go into that people have dealt with their family, and that breaks my heart. And a lot of times, people who come from broken homes will go on and hurt others, which is kind of what happened to me. And I don't blame anyone. This world is a lot more spiritual than people kind of give it credit to be. So I'm already kind of having anxiety right now, and I don't know why, and I look right across over there on my shelf, and it says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything be in prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Let your requests be made known to the Lord," and then the rest of it's covered by a book, but that's Philippians 4:4, and it's crazy that right when I start to get a little anxious, I see that. So, alright, I was raised in a very beautiful family, and we were raised to pray and kind of know God, but we were more so what's called like lukewarm Christians, which is where, you believe, but we don't really know God on a deeper level. And I'm very grateful for my upbringing with going to church and with my parents teaching us how to pray. I remember we used to sit in the family room and we would sit in a circle and pray, and I will never forget how we would all sit together and pray and how we would pray before bed, and I'm so grateful for that because not everyone has that. But I never really knew God growing up on the level that I do now, nowhere near close. And as I got older, I did not think I would ever come to know God. I always believed in God, but I definitely did not think he was good. I thought he was mad at me. I thought that he had favorites and that he just picked and chose who he used, and that was all just a lie from the pits of hell, because the Lord can use anyone. In fact, the more sin that you have, and the more pain, and the more trauma, and the more heartbreak, and just the more chaos and the more maybe some overly religious people would look at your life as dirty, the more the Lord can use you because you've experienced more grace. So when I was 10 years old, I went into middle school before everyone else, not like before everyone else, but I was younger than everyone else. So for the first month of middle school, because my birthday's in the end of September, I was 10, and then I turned 11. 7th grade was pretty good, and 8th grade, things got really bad really quickly. I actually only lasted about a month in before I stopped going to school, because I went in at the age of 11, and at the age of 12, I developed a skin disorder because I got bullied before everyone else. I got acne before everybody else started getting acne. And you know what? I keep stuttering, but I've been putting this off for so long. I've had this podcast room set up for about a year, and so I'm going to do what I do best, and I'm just going to yap, and I'm just going to keep going, and if I watch it all back and I don't like it, I'm just going to re-record it, because I have been delaying this for so long out of just fears and anxieties, and I'm just not going to do it anymore. So if this is the final cut, this is the final cut. But I started getting acne, and my friends and kids in middle school can be brutal, started to bully me really badly. So I thought if I could just make it flat, I could cover it up and it would be fine. Well, that was not the case, because it became where when you scratch at your skin, you put more bacteria on your face. And I don't mean like, oh, I developed a skin picking disorder, like I just popped a zit. No, I mean I literally had a mole on my cheek over here on the right side, and I ripped it out of my face. I ended up being in and out of the hospital for the next decade with infections and disorders and all types of stuff, because I was listening to the lies of the enemy the whole time. I would scratch my face, which was because of OCD, and I just thought if I could make it flat, I could make it flat, I'll cover it up, it's fine. But when you touch your face, you're putting more bacteria onto your face. And I didn't really eat the healthiest growing up. I ate a lot of processed foods, so now I eat very clean. I'm actually very educated on naturopathy, human health, chronic diseases, and nutrition because of everything. So God really does turn everything around for the good. But I started scratching my face really badly, to the point where if I would even go to talk, which is probably why I babble so much now, that I would like start bleeding everywhere. I would do it in my sleep. It became so obsessive that I stopped going to school, because there was a foods and fabrics class and we were making pizza, and I just remember being called pizza face and having the ingredients thrown on me. And my school was directly across from my neighborhood, and I left and did not go back. And what I mean by I did not go back, we almost had truancy filed on me. I ended up getting a special medical exemption because I had so many health issues. Within the first couple of weeks of me going to school, we had like not court-ordered therapy, but the school ordered me to be taken to therapy. And then when we would see doctors for my skin, they were like, she has to go see a therapist, because doctors and like school, they have authority over your children. And so I was acting up really badly when I would be at school or when I would go to doctors for the first couple of weeks that I was there, and they knew something was wrong. Now, a really big sign that something is wrong with your kid's mental health is anger. I lashed out in anger for no reason other than the fact that I was screaming for help. And I'm shaking. It was really bad, to the point where I developed a lot of addictions and disorders. Just keep going, Emily. Just keep going. Do what you do best. Just yap your little head off. Addictions and disorders. So I developed eating disorders, and the really bad one, my skin disorder, where I would just rip the skin off of my face, and I would look in the mirror, and I would just listen to the lies of the devil, just telling me like, you're ugly, you're disgusting, God doesn't care about you, he clearly doesn't like you, look at how your friends are treating you. Like, it was just really, really bad, and I was just a little kid. I didn't know any different. Kids can be brutal, and I became very suicidal. I tried to commit a couple of times in the first year. So from 8th to 9th grade, I tried to commit 2 times. And after it wasn't working, I decided that I would just try to do it with an overdose. So from middle school to high school, throughout those years, I got in a lot of really abusive situations, because when you're a kid and you're trying to get your hands on alcohol and drugs, you're not going to get it from other kids. And I mean, in the district that I grew up in, a lot of kids did a lot of drugs, but we were all getting it from adults, and a lot of the kids, like, obviously, like, drugs is never a good thing, but it was really big, and I never did, like, cocaine or nothing like that. I'm just gonna be brutally honest, never in my life, but I've done a lot of pills, I've done a lot of K2, and people don't look at alcohol and weed as, like, bad. I know they say, oh, weed's a gateway drug, and then they make a little joke like, oh, to the fridge. Like, no, the psychology behind it is that what weed does is every time you smoke, you have a cortisol level, and your cortisol is your stress hormone, and your stress hormone increases, because when you smoke weed, your dopamine, it's a happy hormone, will increase so rapidly, but it's not natural because a substance caused the release, that your cortisol has to match it. But because the dopamine released unnaturally, your cortisol has to jump up and then it stays there because that one released naturally. So over time, your tolerance gets really high. It messes up your hormones, which will then mess up your gut, which will then mess up your vagus nerve, which is a nerve that connects from your gut to your brain, which controls your hormones, your chemical imbalances, and that will make anxiety, depression, and all these things worse. Now, everything really is spiritual, because if I would have known the Word of God says that the enemy is here on earth and demons are here on earth and they work through people and circumstances, I would have never fell trapped to the lies that I'm not good enough or that God doesn't love me or anything like that. I would have known to treat my body more as a temple of the Holy Spirit, because drugs, alcohol, and food, and even our products, all of this stuff will affect your brain chemistry and will affect your gut and will just cause a big storm inside of your body, outside of your body. And so I'm just very grateful how God really does turn everything around. But it caused me to be in a lot of situations that were very dangerous, and my addictions were so bad, and my entire intent was to make it look like an accidental OD because I didn't want to be here anymore. So there were so many times where I would black out. I got arrested a lot. I was in a very, very, very abusive relationship with a man who I've forgiven now, because the Word of God says if you don't forgive others, God cannot forgive you. And it's not excusing anyone's behavior. It's just understanding that it's a spiritual battle. And forgiveness isn't necessarily for the other person. It is for you. Because when you forgive people, it's not saying you're okay with what they did. It's saying, God, I can't take this anymore. And you're giving your heart to Him. And He's taking the chains and the pain off of you. And He will heal it. Heal your deepest wounds. And then vengeance is His. He will handle it. And He will do what is needed to be done for them to learn. And when it says to pray for those who hurt you and persecute you and your enemies, it really means it. Because if you wish harm on anyone, even those who have hurt you, you've now stooped down to their level, and you don't want to ever let anyone change who you are and just the pure heart that God has given you, which pain can do that to a lot of people. And it definitely did for me. I was very angry for a lot of my life, but I was too scared to act on it. So I got into a very abusive relationship with a person that knew that I was purposely trying to OD. And so there were a lot of times where I would sit there and I would be very out of my mind, just completely gone off of drugs and alcohol and all different types of combinations. And I would want to stop, and he would be like, no, keep going. And I didn't want to. And he'd be like, it would just turn into this big manipulation of, if you don't want to be here anymore, you're either going to keep going, or he would pull out certain weapons, or he would then physically or sexually assault me and say things like, either I'm going to do it and you're going to make me look like the bad guy, or you're going to do it and you can finally be happy. Like, it was that type of really sick and twisted manipulation. And I thought God was mad at me and hated me, but in those moments, there are times that I specifically remember just laying there and continuing to drink or to take another pill or to smoke more, to do more K2. And in my mind, I'd say, God, I know you're mad at me, but He wasn't. I just believed the lies of the devil. And I'd say, I know that you're mad at me, but please, if you care about my family at all, don't let me die, just let me black out. And I am 4'7" and I am 98 pounds, and there is no way, like, now that I've studied human health, chronic diseases, and naturopathy, and how the body works and everything, there's no way possible through the amount of drugs and everything I used to do that I am still alive. It's definitely a miracle. But there were a lot of situations like that, and that lasted for 4 years. And during those 4 years in high school, like I said, I got arrested quite a few times. I think I mentioned that. And I also was like in and out of school. Throughout high school, my medical exemption carried over, so I had to go to therapy, which in 8th grade, going back a little bit, when we first started going to the mandated therapy so that I didn't get taken away. Like, looking back, God's hand was always over my life. But when we got forced to go to therapy, I saw a lot of psychologists that I did not like, and I used to just run away and scream and cause a whole scene. We finally found one that I loved, and it was my last chance, because if I didn't like this one, I would have been taken away from my parents, and that would have been bad, because the only people that ever really loved me and supported me was my sisters and my parents. And I mean, looking back, that's not true. Like, my whole family did, and I did have friends, but I would push everyone away. So the only ones I really couldn't push away were my family, but if you were to ask them, I definitely did. I would lock myself in my room. When everyone would come home, I would run away, and this is why the first time we went to therapy, I walked in there throwing a whole fit, a storm, screaming, swearing. Looking back now, I feel so guilty, but I just had to forgive myself. When God says forgive others, he also means yourself. Because I didn't know any better, and I just want to go back and give little Emmy a hug. She probably would have punched me in the face, to be honest, which is not funny. But my parents went in there, and Kelly came out, and she said, "Hi, Emily, I'm going to be like your therapist." And I just remember swearing and screaming at her. She said, "Do you mind if I talk to your parents first?" And I said, "Fine." And my parents were back there for a little bit, and then I go back there, and I'm expecting to be interrogated because I had some very bad experiences with therapists and psychologists just treating me like a case, like not a human being, but strictly a patient, and I dealt with that a lot throughout the years following. But we sat down, and she started asking me if I liked dogs, and showed me a picture of her dog, and I just remember being like, this is weird, but okay. And the whole entire time I was back there, probably about 30 minutes, she was talking to me about her puppy. And then afterwards, my parents were like, "Do you want to go to Applebee's?" And I did not leave the house, mind you. I barely went anywhere, and if I did leave the house, I was running away to go do drugs in the woods to try to off myself, okay? So they convinced me somehow to go to Applebee's with them, and we went to Applebee's, and they were like, "How do you feel about getting a dog?" And I just remember being like, what the heck? And I always make little jokes about this, which is not funny. My way of coping is humor. But I remember growing up, my sisters wanted a pet so badly, like a dog, a cat, anything. And my mom's and sister, and now I found out I am too, and I have a cat now, but she's so cute, I don't even care, we're really allergic to cats and dogs. And they always said no to them. And lo and behold, all it takes is you trying to off yourself, which is not funny, but I always make little jokes like that. So through watching my podcast, if I make some really dark humor jokes, that's just how I'm coping, and I'm getting better with not doing that the closer I grow to God. But we ended up a couple days later getting a dog named Oliver, little love of my life. I swear he's an angel. And in high school, there was a time where I tried to commit, but I was home alone all day. So Oliver, the therapist, convinced my parents that if I wasn't alone, that I wouldn't be using as much, and I would more likely come out of my room and not run away so much and not exclude myself from family gatherings. Because even when everyone would come home, like my sisters would get back from school and my parents would get back from work, I would just either go upstairs or I would sneak out because I was so ashamed and embarrassed of how bad my disorder was. And when I say, like, if I would even talk, my face would start bleeding, I'm not kidding. I had a minimum, and you might not be able to tell now, I've done a lot of microneedling, a lot of gut microbiome restoration. I've done a lot over the last 10 years to restore my skin. I actually have another microneedling facial, which helps with like your pores, fine lines, wrinkles, premature aging. It literally will restore your skin like crazy. It's going to be my 12th one in like 2 weeks from now. So it turns into a little tomato, and you peel and you look crazy for a little bit, but it works wonders to restore your skin, and your skin really is a reflection of your gut health, which I didn't learn until I got older. But if I would even like talk, I would start bleeding everywhere. I had a minimum of about 30 scabs on my face at a time. We even had periods where my dad would tape gloves around my hands before bed because he said one night that he came in because the doctor said I might be doing it in my sleep because I would wake up and it'd be way worse. There'd be blood all over my pillows and my sheets. And I was literally doing it in my sleep. My dad, remember, he said he peeked in my room one night and he started tearing up because he literally saw me kind of like murmuring and talking in my sleep and just ripping the skin off of my face and telling myself in my sleep how disgusting I was as I was doing it. So it brings me back to just realize again how spiritual everything really is. And it was horrible. And as the years went on and my addictions got really bad and my abuse from the relationships I was in and where I was going to get the stuff to feed my addiction, so I would hang out around, now that I know I'm older, they're like groomers and pedophiles, but when you're a kid, you think that these older adults that are in their late 20s, 30s, even early 40s are the cool adults, but as you get older you realize they're, not to slander anyone, but they're really just creepy and kind of losers. But now from a godly aspect, they just need lots and lots and lots of prayers because they are too being led the wrong way by the wrong types of spirits. But I forgive everyone that has harmed me, but I got into a lot of abuse, a lot of situations with SA and DA, and there were even times where I knew it was going to happen, but my addictions were so bad I just didn't care. which breaks my heart because afterwards I would get a big bottle or whatever out of it, and then I would just sit in the middle of the park in the middle of like 3 in the morning and just drink the whole bottle to myself and pass out on the floor. So that happened more times than I can count, and I got arrested quite a few times, like I already said. Here I am going in circles. But as I got older, my first hospital stay, I went to a mental hospital because I actually called the cops on myself because I was going to off myself, and I already tried quite a few times, and I just knew, like, I really can't do this anymore. And so I went to the hospital, they do a bunch of tests, and then they took me to a mental hospital. I stayed there for a while, and looking back, I got very blessed because there was 2 I could have possibly gone to. One of them was called Havenwick, and the other one was called Kingswood. Havenwick treats you like a jail. You wear uniforms. They literally, like, zip tie your hands and your feet when you move anywhere. And you're treated like a prisoner, which definitely would not help anyone. Kingswood, on the other hand, there was 1 spot left, and I got to go there. And Kingswood is still a mental hospital, but you get to wear your own clothes, and there's a girls area and a boys area and a group room. And so basically we would wake up every morning and we would get our vitals checked, and then after that we would go and we'd have breakfast, and then we would go to group therapy, and then there was like a hangout room where I discovered that I love crossword puzzles and card games, especially the game of Speed. That is my game. I will beat any one of y'all at that anytime. Like, I'm the best at that, okay? And I taught everyone how to play Speed. And then we would have art class, and then we would have creative therapy, which is similar to art class, but they would give us little tasks to take the feelings and thoughts that we were thinking and put them into art. And so some people's art was very dark, but then the ones when we would do like painting or drawing or journaling, anything that was very dark, because it was however we wanted to express ourselves creatively. And then they would teach us how to take it from being dark to positive, no matter how much pain we were in. And so I learned a lot of really good coping techniques in that stay in the hospital. And we'd have gym and like a little bit of school, which wasn't really school because we were all like in high school because there was age ranges, and there were different floors, and it was really sad. I remember seeing some people getting moved up floors, which means that they were not like engaging with everyone else, and it's really sad. But there were different floors, and it was very scary too, because when we would move between the different hobbies of the day, sometimes we would pass by the adults, and the adults were all chained up and wearing like jail suits, and they would fight and scream all the time, and there were lockdowns all the time. And I was there for a little over a week, and it helped me a lot. It helped me a lot. I came home and I didn't drink as much, and I didn't do as many drugs, but I was still smoking. Smoking became a big crutch for me, and I believed the lie for the longest time that, oh, it was helping my anxiety and this and that. And, you know, my parents were really not okay with any of this, but my sisters, not that they were like standing up for my addictions, but they were saying, hey, the more that she smokes, the less that she's drinking, the less that she's doing other things. And so at the time, looking back, I'm not saying it's a good thing to do, but it really helped me at that time. And I stopped trying to commit as much, and I started to come out of my room more. And then I was still dating that person who was very abusive until after I graduated. A year later, my grandma passed away, and that is when I knew I had to leave him, because he, like, there was a lot of things that he did to me that were very not okay, like SADA, holding, like, guns and, like, weapons, like, to me and threatening me. But it was when my grandma passed away. You know, narcissists, they make every big thing about them. So he ruined my prom. He ruined my graduation day. I totaled my car because that was the first day. He choked me like really, really hard to the point where I blacked out, and I left crying, and I was crying so heavily that I totaled my car on my graduation day, that he didn't come watch me graduate, even though he went to that school, because he blamed me for the fact that he didn't graduate from there, because when I stopped trying to off myself, he started to threaten that he was going to do so if I didn't. And so then I called the police on him because I was concerned, and then he blamed me for the next couple of years that we were dating, that I ruined his life, because he started going to a special school, and he was actually held in rehab for about 10 months. And then when he came home, he broke up with me for a little bit, and then we got back together, and then he only got back together with me because he was mad at me, and he had a lot of secret hidden agenda and vengeance to take out on me, and things just got really bad. But the day of my grandma's funeral, it was a huge storm of like, what do I wear? Do I wear white or do I wear black? And just made it all about him and like screaming and threatening me. He showed up late, and then I remember a couple days later, he choked me out really badly in his kitchen in the middle of the night because I did not want to have cheese on my pasta because I was trying to eat not as inflammatory foods because I was starting to look into how to actually take control of my skin because I realized I don't think I'll be able to stop scratching with my addictions. I don't think I'll be able to stop scratching until I control the acne. So that's when I kind of started to look into eating healthier. And he choked me out of my kitchen and looked me dead in my eyes and said, if you ever leave me, because I started to make healthier decisions. And when narcissists see that you're starting to kind of better yourself, they know that they're losing control on you. And he started to say, if you ever leave me, I will tie you up, I will kill your parents, I will kill your sisters, I will kill your dogs, and then I will off you and then myself. And then he also threatened that if I go about my life and I think that he forgot about me, that he will even go as far as waiting till I'm married with children, and then he will come after me and still go through with his plan. And I just remember thinking in that very moment, like, I already knew he was very lost and needed a lot of help, but I realized I couldn't help someone who didn't want to be helped. This person has nothing but anger and wrath towards me, no matter how much love I show them, and at the same time, you know, as crazy as it sounds, you can threaten me all day long, you can hurt me all day long, but the second you bring my family into it, And I started to devise a plan to leave, and a couple days later, when I decided to leave, when he was in the shower, I was getting all my stuff out of his house. And I don't know how he knew, but it was a huge thing. And he came out of the shower and he saw me kind of getting my brush and my stuff because I had a drawer with stuff in his house. And it was a huge, huge thing where his whole family had to get involved because he started physically assaulting me in front of his family, and his dad had to pull him off me. His brother was screaming at me. His brother always hated me for no reason. His little sister was crying, his grandma was crying, and his mother was screaming at me, leave and don't ever come back, this is all your fault, for only then a couple weeks to go by for his entire family to be blowing up my phone, begging me to come back, he needs me, and then saying he's really sorry, and I never went back. Never went back. So then a couple months went by, I started dating someone new. Nothing was wrong with that person, just wasn't my person. Started going to the gym because I decided I want to be able to protect myself. And throughout high school, like going back a little bit, I was in the hospital a lot for my skin disorder because I started getting what's called MRSA. It's a skin infection, and it was never properly treated because MRSA needs to be treated properly with IV antibiotics. And a lot of times they'll try to treat it with Bactrim. That is an oral antibiotic, and it won't actually kill off the bacteria, especially if your gut microbiome is too weak. I didn't know this at the time, and my family didn't either, because we, like people were raised to just think that the doctors are just going to help us, and in fact, the medical industry and pharmaceutical industries, although they are great when it comes to emergencies, they are both trillion-dollar industries that make trillions of dollars a year off of keeping you sick, which broke my heart as I got older and started to study this. But it started to build up in my body, and I had hundreds of MRSA infections. I'm very serious, hundreds of MRSA infections from the age of 14, and it led all the way to 20 years old being in a wheelchair. So I left him around 18 years old and started working out for a little bit, and my infections just did not go away, and I kept getting infections. I quit drinking, and I was still smoking. I started to do dabs, because when I would smoke, it wasn't just a bowl here or there. My tolerance was so high because of all of my addictions, and also because of the combinations of medications I was on growing up. Constantly having hospital stays, and I mean, like, not just like visiting the doctor, I mean literally living in the hospital up until when I was 20 years old, where I was actually there for months at a time, and then had so many complications. I've had hundreds of medications that I've been on. I've had hundreds of CAT scans and MRIs, and like, I'm not exaggerating when I say hundreds of test scans and MRIs. I've had 15 surgeries in the course of 5 years, between 20 years old to 23 years old. And first one was my kidney stone surgery, but we don't have to go into all that. We'll go into this later in different episodes when I focus on health, or when I focus on how I learned to study naturopathy and all of this. But that relationship just wasn't really good. He wasn't my person. And then a couple months later, I started dating someone new who would later become very abusive, because there's that saying where if you don't grow as a person, or if you don't learn the lessons you are supposed to learn from someone, you'll keep meeting the same person in a different body. And it's very true, which helps me realize, again, everything is very, very, very spiritual. So, started dating this new person and everything was great. I was becoming very healthy. I was working out for about a year and a half now. And then I turned 20. I spent my 20th birthday in the hospital with another MRSA infection, and it was actually the night that I started dating this person. We talked on the phone for about 6.5 hours, and this person was like my best friend, but you know, they had a lot of issues and they ended up being very abusive. I don't blame the person at all. Again, I've forgiven this person. They didn't actually become abusive until I got out of the hospital. So we dated for 6 months, and then out of nowhere, I got so fatally ill. And for the first 2 weeks, all these doctors were telling me it's just hold muscle, you'll be fine. And I kept going to hospitals, and they just kept saying, oh, we don't see anything wrong with your scans. And let me tell you something, when something is wrong with you, please, 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 please trust your body. Because if I would have listened to these doctors telling me nothing was wrong with me, and my family being irritated, not at me, but just because, you know, like professionals are saying nothing's wrong with me, and I'm crawling on the floor, screaming and crying, saying something's wrong. And it's not funny, but I bring it up to my family every once in a while, especially my mom and sister, because there was a time where I was crawling backwards down the stairs during these 2 weeks of them trying to figure out what was wrong with me, screaming and crying, and I looked up at them at the top of the stairs, and they kind of looked at each other and rolled their eyes, and my sister was like, you're so dramatic, and my mom was like, Emily, the doctors have said nothing's wrong. So they thought I was making the whole thing up, and so it's not funny, but the following week, I officially got hospitalized, and I was hospitalized for pneumonia, which is where your lungs are filling up with fluid. And mind you, I went in there for back pain. I lost my ability to use, it's not funny, but this felt so good when I actually could prove that I was sick, because I was like, I told you guys. But they didn't know any different, so it's not their fault. But I lost my ability to use my arms and my legs. My heart started to fail, my liver started to fail, my kidneys started to fail. I had tachycardia, which is where your resting heart rate is well over 100 beats a minute. And mine was actually an average of 150 to 180. The cutoff before you go into cardiac arrest is about 185, yeah. So my heart started to fail. My lungs, I ended up getting what's called atelectasis, which is where you have these things called capillaries. So if you look at your lungs as 2 sacks of grapes, as you breathe, the capillaries open up. And that's what fills them up with oxygen. So my oxygen level was very, very low. I always had to have the EKG stickers on and the pulse ox thing on. I had oxygen tubes like taped to me, and I always thought there was just those little thin oxygen tubes. There's actually very huge, thick, heavy ones that they had to tape to my body because I was too little and it was so heavy, and I was a vegetable, and I was rushed to the ICU. And the night I was rushed to the ICU was when they were actually planning to do all these procedures to draw bone marrow and just all this stuff to really figure out what was going on. And they knew that I had some serious infection but couldn't figure out what it was. And then they saw over the last previous 5 years that I had hundreds of MRSA infections, and they went through my medical records and they were like, yep, this woman has MRSA that has never been treated properly, slowly building up in her body and took over all of her vital organs, and it's starting to kill her. And it got to the point where I had such high tolerances of every medication, every narcotic, everything, because of my use and all the meds that I was already on, that nothing was working. So when they rushed me up to the ICU, I remember calling my mom and being very scared, and the guy that I was dating was actually there at that moment. And just like in the movies, hi honey, just like in the movies where you see when someone's really sick that they start to, it's called code, where it's like really bad, and the nurse came in to get my vitals, and I just remember being like, why is everybody screaming? Why is everybody screaming? And no one was screaming, okay? And they were like, Emily, like, we're being really quiet, like, you know, we're not being loud. And it felt like everything was spinning, and something was seriously wrong. She takes my vitals, just, you know, I've been in the hospital many times for the last 5 years prior, had lots of surgeries, you know, I've been through it all, so I know what it's like to get your vitals. They put the little pulse ox on, they put the little stickers on your chest, they put the thing on your arm. Out of nowhere, she slams this button, and this light goes off, and you just hear, code red, room, da-da-da-da-da. 40, I kid you not, 40 nurses run into my room. They come into my room, they throw this thing over me to take a x-ray in your room. Before that, I didn't even know that they could do tests and scans in your room, only in emergency cases where you're quite literally about to die. All of a sudden, they are giving me shots. There's 2 nurses giving me 2 different IVs because they needed to draw blood and give me medication at the same time, and it needed to be immediate, so it couldn't be within the same vein. And then they run me upstairs, and I remember calling my mom and being like, they're rushing me to the ICU, and I gave my phone to someone else, and my mom and my sister, one of them lived in Colorado at the time, the one that was at the top of the stairs with my mom, she doesn't do hospitals, but they thought I was gonna die. So my mom and my sister came up there, and I just remember like it was very weird for her to be up there. Not my camera dying literally while I'm recording this. You guys, this podcast has had so much warfare, and if you know me, you know I've been talking about starting this podcast for so long. This room used to be a mega designer closet, which we're about to get there. I'm about to wrap my whole life story up, okay? Because I'm going to break it down in depth, and you're like, girl, you've been in depth. No, like I'm flash forwarding over major events, just trying to give you guys a big picture here. My life was very traumatic, to say the least. But when God has a calling on your life, you're going to go through hell and back, because it says in the Word that His children are marked. And so if you picture a pitch black room and you don't know that you're the light, but all the light sees is the darkness, and the darkness sees the light, and it's a spiritual battle. So spirits work through people and circumstances to attack you. But I have had it on my heart since coming to God to start this podcast, because I let God heal me from everything. I got off the internet for a long time, and He restored a lot of parts of my soul that I didn't know I lost, and really healed me. And this room I set up to be a podcast room June 2023. Okay, it is currently the last day of February 2025. I have had all of the equipment for this podcast since January of 2024, and then I felt it so heavily on my heart to really just dive deep into just go for it and do it. Starting November of last year, so November 2024. And since I set this room up in June 2023, until now, God has edified me and pruned me and refined me and helped me heal and forgive, and He's grown me so much as a woman, and just with knowledge too on His Word, and to be able to better speak. And you might not be able to tell from how I've been speaking through this video, but as I've gone on, I've warmed up. So anyway, there's been a lot of warfare to try to stop me from this. God has shown me a lot of breakthrough and blessings on the other side of my obedience to filming this video, and not even just this one, but starting this podcast and doing weekly podcasts and just diving deep into the Word. So if you follow me on any other platforms, you know that I heavily go into the Word, and I just say it straight, cutthroat, like I'm real abrasive with how I preach. But anyway, before I so rudely got interrupted, and then my mic wouldn't work. Okay, so for the last 10 minutes, I'm gonna try to fix this. But anyway, all of a sudden I'm dying, and my mom and my sister come up there, and my liver's failing, my kidney's failing, my heart's failing. I ended up being there for a long time, and I was told that I would not get out of there. Had a 25% chance of walking ever again. Hello, my leggies are working. And a 10% chance of making it out of there. So some would say it's a medical miracle. I was still on medications for a long time, and I had years of recovery. As I started to recover, the person that I was dating was so used to helping me, because he would spoon feed me, and it was like I couldn't use my arms and my legs for a minute, and then I was very, very weak. So when I was recovering, I wasn't supposed to lift any weight, which was devastating to me, because I lost all the hard work from about the year and a half prior of working out. And looking back now, everything really happens for a reason, because I learned from being fatally ill that when you are dying, your body breaks down your protein to survive. Your protein is stored in your muscles, okay? So I turned to skin and bones. Within my first 3 days of being in septic shock, I went from 98 pounds to 72 pounds in 3 days. And not like some cute little, oh, weight loss. No, I lost all of my muscle and turned to skin and bones, and was looking really frail and really scary. Looking really scary. All of the footage I have from that time period, I look like a whole different being. I do not look anything like this, because I was quite literally dying. It's a major part of my testimony. It all goes together. If I wasn't working out for the year beforehand to protect myself from the abuse that I went through, I would have not survived, because I would have not had the muscle that my body needed for the protein to be broken down because your protein is stored in your muscles. So he got very used to me needing him for him to help me with my medications and this and that, and he started drinking a lot more, and then he ended up in August of 2018 trying to off me when he was very, very, very drunk, and I stayed with him for about a year and a half later. And then when I left him around 2020, when COVID happened, I actually was going back to school for human health, naturopathy, and chronic diseases. I had straight 4.0s, and I ended up getting a full ride academic scholarship to Sestain University, which is a private university in Florida. But before we all say, oh my gosh, that's amazing, you're so smart, da 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 da, I dropped that scholarship and dropped out of college. Well, Emily, why would you do that? Well, when COVID happened, I did not feel comfortable moving across the country. Florida didn't shut down, little did I know, but everywhere else in the world did. Okay. And it was just a very uncertain time, and I ended up getting into New Age spirituality. When you go through a lot of chaos in your life, and you can't trust anyone, and you've been hurt by everyone, you will start to kind of seek control. And New Age spirituality, if you don't know, is crystals and candles and tarot and zodiac signs and like using the stars and the moon and the elements of the world and the earth and the universe and talking to the universe and your spirit guides. And it's the devil's counterfeit of religion, which you hear all the time. It's not about religion, it's about relationship. But the word religion literally means, definition, relationship with God. So you hear all the time, it's not about religion, it's about relationship. But that's just because people have been hurt by people in the church. And let me tell you something, no one who has deep-rooted faith in God and education and knowledge on the word is a Christian because of other Christians. Let me tell you that. We all fail short. We all fail. We all fall short, and we all mess up. When I was fatally ill, I started to pray again for the first time in my life. Not for myself, but because I was in a children's hospital, because I was 20 at the time. I was the oldest person there. You have to be 21 at U of M hospital, which is where I was, to be on the adult side. So I saw a lot of babies, like hospital cribs, little girls in tutus, because when you're like living there, they let you have your own clothes. There's actually a salon there where they do your hair and all of that. But I started praying, and I would say things like, God, I know you're mad at me, which he wasn't, but I that's the mindset I was in. I said, God, I know you're mad at me. God, I know that you hate me, which he didn't again, but at least save these kids. So I started developing a relationship with God around that time, and I think that's why the more I would heal, the more I would praise God and just really start to grow with him. And I started to kind of look into Bible verses here and there. Never got a Bible, but that is definitely why the devil tried to deceive me with the whole counterfeit of New Age spirituality. And then from 2020 to 2023, I fell so deep into New Age spirituality. And again, when you have a high calling in your life, the devil will do everything to pull you in the other direction. So in August of 2020, I had my first viral video on TikTok with 1 million views. A couple days later, I would say affirmations like, I am rich, I am famous, everyone loves me, I am blessed. And to me it felt really good because I grew up with a lot of bullying, a lot of abuse, a lot of addictions. I felt like a failure. No matter how much I would love people, they would just treat me horribly. Again, going back to that flashlight analogy, where if you are the light and you are marked by God, you don't see yourself as the light yet. All you see is the darkness, but all the darkness sees you and wants to do anything to dim your light. That is the spirits that work over people who are marked, or that work over people and through people and circumstances to attack those who are marked by God. This is all in the Bible, not that analogy, but about how spirits will work over you and how you're marked, and until you know your authority in Christ and what God has called you to do, bad things are going to happen. It's not because God's not good. There is free will, and it says in Genesis 50:20, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for my good. He brought me to this position to save lives of many. Technically, that is Joseph talking to his brothers when they sold him into slavery because he was a prophet and he was going to be a big king, and his brothers did not like that at all and tried to do everything to stop it. But when I first came to God, I kept seeing that, and I also kept seeing this one verse that said a true prophet is not accepted in their own hometown, sometimes even amongst relatives. So God can only work slight miracles until the prophet really knows their authority. Because when you let everyone around you just tell you you're never good enough, and let me tell you something, my family was always, I'll say it 1,000,000 times, there for me. Nothing I went through was their fault. I thought it was all my fault, and I was embarrassed. So I did not tell them because I was so embarrassed by all of it. And during the times where my addictions were bad and my self-harming was bad, I would try to hide it. When the abuse was bad, I would cover up the bruises, or I would run away, or I would always be, like, when I wasn't at home and I wasn't at the hospital, I would be running away, or I would be at my abuser now, looking back, but the boyfriend that I was dating at the time, I would be at their houses because they knew that I had bruises all over them because they were the ones giving me the bruises, so I didn't have to hide them over there. So I would hide it, and I think that the more I started to talk about it, the more concerned they got, but the more embarrassed I got, because part of me, when you go through abusive cycles, I wasn't ready to leave. So this person started to abuse me really, really badly, and then I fell into New Age spirituality, and then I ended up breaking up with him because I started to get lots of validation elsewhere. I was very insecure, and it's when you don't heal from insecurities with God and you heal with the world, you will fill the void with a false sense of hope, of validation, and I ended up becoming overly prideful because I used New Age spirituality, and August of 2020 started gaining millions of views. By November of 2020, I gained millions of views and millions of dollars because my Instagram at that time, I was using it to track my progress of healing from being in the hospital, and I started to get back to the gym, and so I would post what is called physique updates, where you would be like in a sports bra or shorts or bikinis, and the wrong type of crowd started to come around, but I didn't mind because I blew up because of my bullying and narcissistic abuse. It felt really good to finally be seen as something, and it felt really good to be the person out of the high school that everyone looked at as the bad guy and everyone hated for no reason, when I wouldn't start fights or anything. And the amount of times I heard throughout high school when I would go, oh, I thought you were really mean, but you're actually really nice, or everyone thinks that you're a, I don't swear anymore, but a bitch, but you're actually a sweetheart. And it's like, people just assume things about you, and I think it's because, I kind of have, that's called a RBF, my face, when I'm just sitting still, it looks like I'm mad at you, but I'm not mad at anyone at all. And I also was very sassy because I was the type of person that went through a lot of abuse. So if I saw someone who was sad, I would always stand up for those being bullied, but I would not tolerate it. I would go right up to whoever was being mean and I would call them out because I was just, like, I know what it's like to hurt. So I think people had the wrong impression of me, and I still get that to this day, and I just know it's the enemy working through people, just making them think, hey, she's not a good person, for absolutely no reason. And it felt really good to get all this attention and validation. So from August 2020 to November of 2020, I blew up, and I got millions of followers on TikTok, and I started to make millions of dollars because I was manifesting to be rich in this, and I kept having these thoughts of just start an OF, which is an OnlyFans. And before you assume, I didn't do any, I'm used to TikTok, so you have to say corn. I didn't do any porn or nudity. Not my camera dying again, and now my thing is on low battery. So I did not do any pornography or nudity or anything like that. I took the pictures from my Instagram and put them on there. Never did I ever show anything, ever. Never did I do any requests or anything like that, but I made millions doing that, and it got me around a lot of the wrong people, and it definitely gave me this false sense of confidence where when you are that young, because I was 22 at the time, where I started to gain millions of followers and millions of dollars after having nothing and being the outcast my whole life. It felt really good, and I was still praying every day, but I thought God was the one doing that for me because I really didn't know the Word of God at all. And I didn't stop to think, because I was so young, hey, God doesn't want you to use your body to make money. You are beautiful, you are smart, you are hardworking, you are loving, you are caring. There's so many good qualities about you, Emily. Why are you taking the easy way out? And I just thought, because of my story, I came through a lot with my body. I had eating disorders. I used to try to off myself. I went through a lot with the hospital. Like, this is my story. And that's how I would explain it to people who cared about me when they were a little concerned in the beginning. I was like, look, I'm not doing anything that's nude, and the whole reason I started posting my body in the first place was to actually show progress of how when the doctors say you can't heal, God says it's possible. And I started to post a lot more like Bible verses here and there. So the devil saw me getting closer to God and was like, oh, no, and led me all down the wrong way. And from 2021 to 2023, a lot happened. I gained millions of dollars, like I said, millions of followers, started traveling around a lot, started going to Miami, got to know a lot of celebrities and was friends with people in the modeling industries and music industries and athletes, and would go to all types of VIP parties, and my life changed like crazy. And I just remember I would buy so much designer, and then people knew me on social media because I would always go live doing my hair and doing my makeup, and I would shop a lot, and I would do get ready with me's in the skimpiest, tiniest little outfits. I knew how to get views, I knew how to get money. I developed this false sense of confidence where I have always been very loving, but I was always very shy, so I developed a lot of confidence. And definitely got bullied a lot because of social media, but I already went through hell and back with that, so I was like, okay, I know how to handle this. Lo and behold, did I know now that God was preparing me for what I'm now doing, because once I came to God and I quit drinking, finally, quit smoking, quit partying, let go of all the things of this world, never have I ever been bullied and persecuted more in my life, that I'm living a healthy, happy lifestyle. And it's all because I'm mentioning the name Jesus, the name above all names that no one wants to hear, proving more and more that he is the Lord, and that people will persecute you, and as Jesus says, they will hate you because they hated me. There is no reason for anyone to hate someone who wants nothing but goodness for you, that shares good, positive stories of going through hell and back, and how, hey, I've been in that battle, I see you're in that battle, God turned it to strength for me, so let me share my story with you so that I can help you, and that's what I'm trying to do, and that's the whole intent of this podcast, because people can go back and listen to it or watch it. And the enemy's been trying to stop it so much. I mean, this died 2 times, so I'm going to have to figure this out for the next episode. But for the first year, it felt great, and I started getting so much money that I would shop a lot. And so I blew up for having shoes as well. I had hundreds of shoes. This room was filled with walls of shoes, hundreds of Jordans and Nikes to be specific. And I had all these limited edition designer bags and this and that. And the second year, I got into another abusive relationship. And looking back now, the person wasn't horrible, but it was very mentally and emotionally abusive. And I just remember thinking, man, I have everything of this world, all of the money, all of the materialistic stuff, opportunities to be verified on everything and to sign with certain industries, and I'm still unhappy, and I'm still not being seen for what I'm worth. What am I doing wrong? And so I started to do more witchcraft and more this and more that, and I left that person, and it was very emotional and manipulative, and I do think he is a good person. I think we both had baggage and trauma from our past, and I think that for the first time in my life, I had this sense of confidence where it was like, you can't tell me anything. And so with all the other abusive and really bad relationships, I was too scared to say anything, but I wasn't for this person. So for the first time in my life, I became someone who would say things and would be rude, like it was called reactive abuse, but it was more so me, like the person would do things from my past that would remind me of the other people, even just in the slightest, and I would blow up. And so it just became this storm, 2 unhealed people who are not necessarily abusers, but were abusive towards each other because of past hurt, and we both understand that now, and I forgive the person. So now I've been single. Okay, what is this? The 3rd or 4th time my camera has shut off. What have I told you? The warfare about this podcast? Where even was I? I had to take a break because it wouldn't even turn back on. Okay, this is the last thing I'm going to say. Ready? I got all this money. I felt really good. Fell into New Age spirituality, started to wonder why, even though I had all the things of this world, I was still miserable. So my prayers, actually October 2023, I tried to off myself or 2022, tried to off myself for the last time, went to the hospital, and they told me that I had BPD, which I already knew. And they say BPD is permanent, it's borderline personality disorder. Let me tell you something, it is not. In every permanent health issue I have ever had, mental and physical, I have been healed and delivered from in Jesus' name. And a lot of people, I talk about this a lot, and I get a lot of hate for it. People say your health issues must have not been that bad, then they probably misdiagnosed you. No, because from my combination of my experience from 15 years of literal hell, mental and physically, when it came to doctors and health issues, on top of all of my addictions and everything that led to it, yes, the chemical imbalances are real, but it goes down to the enemy working through people and circumstances and not treating your body as a temple of the Holy Spirit, because the more toxins that are in your body from drugs, alcohol, medications, foods, products, all of that, it will destroy your gut, which destroys your vagus nerve, which destroys your brain chemistry, because your vagus nerve connects from your gut to your brain. And the more I started to grow with God and I started to learn my worth and learn God's word and walk by it and stand in it and pray for deliverance, the more he started to lead me to his real, true, and firm natural medicine, which I learned, which I was studying prior to coming to God, but I really started to stand on it and to fight through it, because it's not just an overnight change. God is not a genie. And I started to follow naturopathy, and every health issue that I ever had, through natural medicine, herbalism, detoxing of heavy metals and parasites and all this, every single health issue that I've ever had that is permanent has been removed. And I'm currently being still healing from lupus and stuff, so I'm not denying these things, but there's nothing that is permanent that I was told I would have forever, like BPD and lupus, that hasn't gone away through fasting, deliverance, prayer, detoxing. It's a combination of walking by faith and not by sight, standing on God's word, and using the natural herbs that he has given us on earth that do not leach toxins into our body to detox it. So I started to heal from all of that, and in April of 2023, after doing so much more witchcraft, because I didn't know it was witchcraft. I just thought it was New Age spirituality, love and light, not knowing that the Bible says that the devil comes as an angel of light to deceive you, and that people will put their faith in creation over the creator, thinking it's a median between them and God, thinking they're talking to spirit guides when they're really talking to demons. And I did not believe it, no matter how much someone would try to tell me. And so then I started to pray. My prayers changed in April 2023, and I started to say things along the lines of, God, if I am deceived or following any lies or anything that is not in your plans for me, will you give me the sight to see so? And will you remove every person, place, thing, behavior, and mindset that is leading me away from what you have for me? And I started to feel very uncomfortable doing the modeling that I was doing and working with the companies that I was working with. I started to feel very uncomfortable going on these trips to Miami and getting paid to go to the club and to drink and to party all night. I started feeling very uncomfortable even walking into this room and seeing all this designer stuff. I started feeling very, very uncomfortable getting dressed and going to the gym every day. Not that God didn't want me going to the gym, but I would wear very skimpy gym outfits, and I would take pictures of, like, they call them belfies, like booty selfies at the gym, and I would make I felt so uncomfortable living that way for the first time in forever, after getting a false sense of validation from it for so long. And June 8th, 2023, I was radically saved by Jesus after starting to kind of dabble in the Bible from April to June, and I woke up that day and I deleted every single post on every social media platform. And when I went to delete the platforms, he was like, I'm going to consecrate you, you're going to grow with me, and you're going to get back on there. And the millions of people you led to materialism, lust, vanity, divination, worship. Once I heal you in all areas of your life and you really submit to me, because all the money you made, you're not going to work for the next 2 years, and you're going to grow with me, and you're going to study your word daily. And I did all that. And then God healed me so deeply, and now here we are. And I'm now using all of my platforms to share my testimony in the glory of God and bring hope. And so I've been through a lot. I know that was a long story short, or it really was a long story short. I know you're like, girl, it's been an hour. That was a long story short, and I will go more in depth, and the episodes won't be as long. They'll probably be about 40 minutes, maybe 50. I think an average podcast is about 40 to 50 minutes. Some are like an hour and a half. I want to keep mine about 40 minutes each. And for the first 4 episodes, I'm going to break down each part of my testimony. So the first one with bullying and learning how to know your worth in God. And the second one is going to be kind of more on abuse and how to get out of abusive relationships. And then I'm going to go into addictions, and I'm going to break down different parts of my testimony in depth, and then different parts in the Word, and just wherever else God leads me. But this first episode was just kind of run over of my life, how we got from me coming out the womb to this very day. And I just want to say, praise Jesus, because it's been hell and back. I never in a million years thought I would even make it past my 14th birthday max, and then I never thought I'd get out that hospital bed, and then I never thought that all these permanent health issues would go away. I never thought in a million years I would become rich, and then I never thought I would give up all of my riches and donate all of my material stuff and live a normal life to grow with God, because you can have everything in the world, but if you don't have a deep personal relationship with Jesus Christ, you really have nothing. And so I'm not here to force religion. I'm here to share my story, and not my truth, but the truth of Jesus Christ. And whether you believe or not, if you've been through bullying, abuse, addictions, disorders, New Age spirituality, if you're just kind of confused between spirituality and God, or what you even believe in, or if you just like to listen to someone yap all day, or if you want to be educated on natural medicine, whatever it is, I'm going to talk about it all. And I'm someone who's not afraid to talk about hard topics, and I will say it straight up as it is, and I will go very bluntly into the topic, and it will be a lot more organized in my next couple episodes. But this first one, I'm going to keep it the way it was, all messy and crazy, because I'm not redoing this. I am not redoing this. It is late. I am hungry. I want some Indian food. And so I'm gonna go and eat and then edit this later, because this was too much. This was too much. It's probably about to die again. So God bless you all. I love you guys very much. If you made it to the end, thank you for listening to my story, and I will do my absolute best to let God work through me and use me as a vessel to share my story and instill hope, and to help educate people on naturopathy, human health, chronic diseases, and how to get out of domestically abusive relationships, how to heal through being from like bullying, sexual abuse, all that stuff, how to not put your faith in the world and materialism and seek the wrong things, and how to just know who you are. But most importantly, I don't know if this is the 4th or 5th time that this thing died, but anyway, goodbye, have a good night. My microphone, I just sat there for 20 minutes because my microphone stopped recording, so I think I might have lost half of the recording for this video. Thankfully, my camera is recording, so half of this podcast might be choppy. When I go to edit this, if it's too long or too messed up or whatever, I'll just redo it. I'm hoping not, but all of my other episodes will be very much in order, very much straight to the point, specific topics, and not like this, not this messy, not this choppy, not all over the place. This was insane, but all I can say is I feel chains breaking, and if you're part of the Christian community, you know exactly what I mean. If you are friends and family, you know exactly what I mean, especially my friends, because I have been praying and crying to them about this for 2 years now, almost, and there's been so much prayer over it, and I just, like, the last couple times I came in here to record, you see I'm a yapper. We're done now. We're getting off. Last couple times I came in here to record, I got so overwhelmed with the amount of times the camera would turn off. This time I'm laughing. This time I'm gonna figure out why the camera keeps overheating. I'm gonna figure out why the microphone keeps disconnecting. Trial and error, I guess. But God bless you all. With this podcast, we're going to learn a lot about naturopathy, how to learn your worth, how to grow, how to find out the gifts and skills and talents God has given you. Maybe you want to own a little business. I own my own small faith-based business now. I'm going to work in the worship group at church. I work with children's ministry. I've been doing a lot. But all for the Lord. I want to live my life for the Lord, and the plans God has for you are going to be bigger and better, as the word says, and exceedingly and abundantly than anything you could ever imagine. So let go of your own will and your own life and the world. Stop seeking false validation from the world, because you will never find true peace trying to fill the void only God can, and live the plans that only God knows He has for you. When you're trying to live your own life and fall into the deception of the devil, who is a liar. The devil is a liar. Okay, well, this was interesting. Next time will be better. Hopefully maybe we could put this together, because this one's quite entertaining, I think. All the other ones will make a lot more sense. Love you! Bye!